Hello there and welcome to the October update from Dean Park Station. I've been very busy on the layout this month around the station area, so let's waste no time and I'll show you what I've been up to. Okay, what I've done here is I've applied the sleeper grime to the side of the rails and I've given the tops of the sleepers a light dusting in it as well. If I take you down lower on this diamond crossing, you can see that the side of the rails now are completely coated in the rail match sleeper grime. I applied this using my airbrush, 2 or 3 light passes on the side of the rails was enough to cover it, and after it dried I just simply took the Pico track rubber and took the paint off the top of the rails and did a test run with a class 27 to check everything was still working okay. Don't know if you can pick up from the clip here, but I've put a light dusting in between the rails on the ballast and the top of the sleepers, and each side of the rails on the outer sleepers there's again a slight grimy look to the ballast. I don't want to overdo it at this stage. I'm going to apply the roof dirt shortly to dull things down because it looks a bit browny just now, and then I'll add oil spills to the platform areas. A bit more dirt around the point mechanism itself. You can probably see the sleeper grime quite clearly there on the ballast as well as the rails. And because I've wired my Pico points up to additional connections as per the instructions, I could afford to get the inside of the rails covered in paint. I don't have to worry about that's not actually essential for keeping the point working. This rail and this rail are permanently positive or negative voltage because they're linked to the relevant rail each side of them, which was done when I installed the points. So I'm quite pleased with this so far, but I've got the next stage which I'll show you in the next clip, which is the result of applying the roof dirt. Okay, just before I apply the top coat of roof dirt, just to darken down and tone down the rails just ever so slightly, I'll show you the comparison between unballasted and unweathered rail on the right to more realistic appearance on the left. That's just using the rail match sleeper grime at this stage. I've coated the side of the rails completely in it, as is the real railway. The tracks do get very, very dirty at the side. If they're not getting used heavily, then rust effect, rust shades are an option for that. But this is getting heavily used. It's a mainline station, so I dispensed with the need for rusty rails and went straight to the sleeper grime. And you can see it again on the outward sections of the track there in between the sleepers. Outside the rails it's grimy as well. You can still see the greyness of the ballast in between the two rails and the sleepers, but that'll get toned down just a wee bitty with the roof dirt. You can see if you zoom back out, you can see the unfinished rail on the right and the weathered stuff on the left. It is worth doing. I've not cleaned the tops of the rails of these yet. I've now finished the ballasting of the station area and I've also weathered the track. For this I used rail match paints. I painted the side of the rails using sleeper grime, and then I toned it all down using roof dirt to give it kind of a more oily, dirty look as opposed to the kind of browny orange look that the sleeper grime gives you. So hopefully the camera will pick it up. Get some focus. There we go. So the side of the rails are now totally dirty, and I've given the ballast and the sleepers, there's no longer a kind of plasticky shiny look. Obviously I've had to clean the top of the tracks to get the train running again, but hope you'll agree that it certainly looks more realistic than it did all shiny track. There's the parts of the station that I've got more grime and dirt than the others. Letting board to clean the last parts of these rails here because they've just been, you know, unused by the trains. And I've given it a light dusting outside on the sleepers, outside the rails if you like, still leaving some of the ballast in the middle cleanish. I've still got to add some oil spills for the DMUs and locos sitting in the sidings and the platforms, but that'll come. I've also you can see it better on some than others, depends where the light is. I've kind of put a bit of a more grimy look around the mechanism there, a bit more roof dirt, just to give it that impression with the oil and the grease on the mechanism to operate the point lever. I'll go down to the west end and show you a bit more weathering. Okay, what I've got here is obviously the track's been dirtied up. I've also got the point motors which have been weathered. I've just weathered them using Humbrol weathering powders, dark earth and smoke. I'm just taking a very sort of fine brush to get it into the nooks and crannies, and then just brushed a very light dusting with a larger brush to kind of tone it all down. And I think that they do make them look vastly improved and more like they've been sitting outside the track, getting the grime thrown from the trains and whatnot. You can see again the mechanism for the point is being dumbed down a wee bit with the roof dirt. It also hides any bits of cork that you've not managed to get ballasted because it's too near the mechanism to go with the ballast, so you've kind of got to be wary when you're ballasting around the turnout mechanisms. I've also fitted some speed signs in the station. These are 10 commandments, just painted them in yellow, real yellow acrylic from Humbrol with a black post. And again, I've got ones there showing the route, 10 mile an hour to the left. I've got, obviously there's one with the back to us here, 35 mile an hour for the trains coming the other way. Let's just zoom out there, as you can see there's more detail going on. I've fixed the relays, boxes are all being fixed down as well onto the concrete base. Signal boxes in position. The posts, the overhead mast posts, they're all been fixed in place using the wing nut screw fitting underneath the baseboard. It allows you to remove them if you have to later on. And I've also used some of 10 Commandments modern signage. I'm not going to go overboard on this because it was the late 80s and health and safety hadn't really got a grip of things. So there's not as much safety notices as you would get at a station today. Another thing I've been doing, these are Pico, they're dummy AWS sensors, and I'll take you through how I did these in a minute or two. They're placed in front of every signal. They should be 200 yards ahead on BR standards, which is about 2 meters ish in double O, but Pico recommend that you put them 12 to 18 inches in front of the signal to give a good effect. I've done it with these two here because they're the dead end platforms, so there's no point in putting it too far away. So I've got them all on the layout here. I've got one down there. You can see with the weathering on the track here how the orange cable under the track's been dumbed down and dirtied as well, and that's just been placed on with some rocket glue. I've weathered them as well, which again I'll run through how I did that. This area here has been a ballast at a certain point, and this area has been done with green scenes, yard filth, textured paint. You're not see it too clearly here, the texture, but that will be a base layer for putting some bushes, static grass, basically unkept bushes and stuff that you would find. It was a big area just to put all ballast. I have looked at Edinburgh Waverley photos and there's a heck of a lot of ballast around, but I just thought to break things up for my layout, I'd put a wee bit of you know, grass, weeds, small bushes kind of growing up the retaining wall, and maybe some, you know, taller bushes, and basically coarse ground cover. So that'll be done. I'm waiting on static grass coming in the post. It's one back order from ID Vaccines, or International Models I think it is. Aye. Come on towards the tunnel mouth. Again, a speed sign, AWS sensor there. The ramp is the leading edge of the direction of travel, and the two yellow bits are the mechanism and electromagnet to pick up obviously the train going over it and tell the driver if the signal ahead is it clear or danger. And I've also got some sleepers, coated them in sleeper grime and given it a very light dusting of oxide Humbrol weathering powder around the chairs and the fixings. They've been sitting out side of the rails, they'll get a wee bit more rusty, exposed to the elements. The ones obviously on the track are filthy and in continuous use, so they're not going to get as rusty. You don't tend to find track that's in heavy use getting rusty. It's more like the newly laid stuff, or the stuff that's not getting used at all, that goes rusty. You'll see my two sensors there for the CR signals. They're the Heathcote boards to feed back to the signal. And I've also put some rail that's been left after a rail repair or something. Again, I coated that in rail match sleeper grime with a mixture of dark rust, just to give it the appearance that it has been out of use and it's not maybe as, you know, black and dirty and grimy as the stuff that's getting constantly used by the trains. And again, there's your point motors. They're Pico point motors, dummy point motors, and you have to trim off the little kind of peg there and some of the arm so it fits into the actual, you know, hole for the point motor. Again, I've given it a bit of muck there, a bit of rust, a bit of grime, just kind of getting into the corners as the trains rush past and push the grime onto the motor. So pan round, I've got the DMU sitting there and the 27. I've also got a new addition to the left there, which I'm going to go through on this video as well. A couple of guys have been in touch on my Facebook page asking how my track weathering was getting on, and obviously I've weathered the layout, but before I did that I practiced on the ballasted practice areas. So really I used this track for practicing my ballast, and then when I was happy with it I then obviously used it for my weathering practice. And it's nice to have a wee loco sitting on it in display if you've got it off the track. You can probably see better under this light how dirty I've made it. That's just with sleeper grime on the edge of the rails to tone it down. If I can get up near the light maybe a bit better. See, the kind of the ballast on either side of the outer rails there, it's kind of taking on a kind of dirty, grimy, filthy effect as well, just like the side of the rails. And in the middle I've toned it down with just roof dirt, a very quick pass just to take the orangey brownness off the sleepers that is left by the sleeper grime. You can just leave it sleeper grime, it does look cool without the roof dirt, but you know, that just tones it down, makes it a little more oily as well. Filthy. And if you just check my turnout here, again a bit more filth around the point mechanism, and I've toned it down, especially in the areas where there's a lot of grime and guff. It's important to coat the side of the rails. You know, I've gone several passes there with the sleeper grime just to make sure that it's coated at close range with my airbrush. And you know, you want that wee bit overspill into the ballast. It looks like it's actually meant to be there, not just being plonked down. And again, it gives it that well run in, used look. That's what the rest of the layout's like. It's maybe not picked up on the camera too well because of the layout, because of the lights on that part of the layout, but you know, it was fairly straightforward to do, and I actually quite enjoyed it. The airbrush I used was a gravity feed Neo from iWater, and it was £40 or something, and it was a double action airbrush, and get the box. It is a joy to use. You can't beat a iWater airbrush, especially the twin action ones. This obviously comes off the cup, and you can put a smaller cup in, but it's great. It's got the wee cover on it as well, so when you're painting in nooks and crannies and you're bending your wrists and everything in different angles, no paint spills out because the lid's on. Well, if you put the lid on securely, that is. And it's easy to clean. Just take the cup off, blast some airbrush cleaner through there at high pressure, and it cleans out the funnel. I've not dismantled it yet because there's no paint got into the mechanism or springs as yet. And I say that was a good value. This an airbrush. They say it's for beginners. Start airbrushing now. They've kind of put on the front of the box. But to be honest with you, I've had Badger airbrushes at a lot more of the cost, and this thing does the business. I think it's a 0.35mm nozzle needle on it, so it gets into the fine work. It really is all you need. And if you're so inclined, you can airbrush and decorate your cakes, etc. As it says on one of the leaflets, it's for many purposes, not just model making. So there's my weathering. Any questions on that, just give us a shout. Okay, just as at the west end of the station, I've also got some yard filth muck along at the east end. Just if I zoom out to show you where, just where the the retaining wall is, and the big gap between the track ballast and the retaining wall. And I've also got the same down here. And there's a row of buffers there. I've got a couple of Bachmann used cable drums, and I've also got my AWS, some rusty nails, sleepers slung around the place. And as you can see with the grime, there's the actual texture. That's not actually ballast or anything, that's just the actual paint itself. It's like a kind of paste, kind of gritty polyfiller, and you just kind of dab it on with a brush to the effect you want. Obviously the more you want texture, the more you put down. Obviously I removed the retaining wall and that before I did this to get the clean edge. That'll all be given a ground covering of weed, grass, static grass, basically an overgrown area, and blended in with the edge of the ballast a bit better. What I've also got for this side is a Bachmann line side hut. Just bought that from Hatton's. I'll give a nice addition to the end of the platform, and obviously all the bushes and stuff and young trees and weeds there. It will kind of blend it all in and make it look like it's been there for a long time. And there's a wee bit of signage at the end of the platform as well. So I'm kind of just saying I'm waiting for some static grass to come in, some back order. So when that comes in, I'll get busy with the scenic areas at both ends of the station. Right, these AWS ramps, I say they're Pico. I gave them a coat of spray primer, just grey. I then picked out the yellow pieces, which are the magnets, in Humbrol acrylic yellow, real yellow. Several coats it took to cover the grey primer. I really should have used white primer, but didn't have any to hand. I then did the galvanised steel parts in a mix of Humbrol aluminium and gunmetal, 3:1 aluminium to gunmetal. I'll put the numbers of the paints at the bottom of the screen. Gave them the metal parts a paint, the bracket there beside the yellow and the ramp. They look kind of silvery shiny and new, and these are kept in fairly good condition on the network because of their importance, so they're always getting parts replaced. So you can do one really grimy if you want, but I was just on the train to King's Cross the other day there, and I've seen the mainline stations, they are fairly well kept. It was too silver after I'd painted it, so I toned it down with a black wash, a very thin black wash just to take down off the silver, and it also got into the nooks and crannies of the yellow parts in between the two yellow blocks there, and round about the screw areas and the bolt areas, and just again took the newness of it, and it got into the kind of grid of the galvanised ramp there, and it kind of, you know, it looks like it's got a wee bit of grime about it. Final thing I did was I got my weathering powders and just, you know, give a wee bit of a sleeper grime kind of powdered wash, just with a dry brush, and I say that's one of the cleaner ones that I've shown you here. Just glued it on with some rocket super glue. There's another one there. You could really go to town and make it grimy and you know, and really weathered down. I've got a couple like that. I've not fitted the layout yet, but I'm quite impressed with those little things. Come in packs of 4. If you've got a bi-directional line like the back platform there, you need to alter them. And what I've done with these today, I've taken 2 of them and I've sliced one of the sections off. If I lay that down there, you can see I've removed one of the main sections, and I'll paint the bits yellow, and that's ramps at both sides for bi-directional running, and that will obviously go, because I've got a signal at this end and a signal at the other end of the same platform, and that will go somewhere under the hoppers. I've also been working on buffer stops. These are Pico SL40, I think, buffer stops, and I've just given them a coat of Humbrol grey primer, and picked out the buffer areas in rail yellow. These are prototypical to Edinburgh Waverley. They're still like this today actually. They've been like that since the 80s. One bit of advice when you're doing these: paint does not stick very well to the plastic that the buffer stops are made from. It's very flexible plastic. It's the same kind of plastic as the sleepers on the flexi track, and in fact any Pico track. And if you paint it and then try to flex it, the paint will easily crack and flake off, regardless if you prime it or any kind of paint you use, acrylic, enamel. It just does. It's the type of plastic that they're made from. So if you've ballasted your track and you're going to fit buffer stops, before you paint them, make them fit, as in, you know, clip the little lugs at the bottom, because they're designed to fit on track that's not been ballasted. So you clip it all, you get it to fit, you go and spray them or paint them or whatever, you very carefully put them back in place, and if you want to hold them down with some, you know, super glue, then fair enough. Mine aren't. Mine are just kind of friction fitted. They do actually hold. If a train hits them, they don't move, but you know, they are removable. I found out to my cost, because what I did with some of them was I painted them, weathered them, then tried to snip them. When you try to cut some of the plastic, it flakes the paint, etc. It's a pain in the backside. Thank goodness they're only £1.30 or something, because I've gone through a fair few trying to get it right. Once the paint's on, it's a pain in the bum to try and get all off if it starts to flake, so I just chuck them and get some new ones. I've weathered them using Humbrol dark earth powders, just to give it that kind of toned down effect. The ones at Waverley are quite well kept, you know, they're not weathered or dirty or rusty, because they're under the roof. So, you know, I've tried to keep them as clean as I think they should be. You'll see the lights there, the twin bulbed buffer stop. Again, these are what they're like at Edinburgh Waverley, and in fact Edinburgh Waverley actually has another single one at the other opposite side from the double. I put these in, but it was too bright. It looked like Amsterdam red light district, so I took the single one out at the sides and just left the double standing on its own, and it's a lot better. Both the single and the doubles are from Express models, and they come with a resistor that you just, you know, solder to the wire, and they're fairly easy to fit and wire in. I've got them wired to the 12 volt bus underneath the layout, which powers the signals as well, and they're always on. You know, when the layout gets powered up, they come on. I'm quite chuffed with them actually. When I put the daylight, or the darkness for the layout, should I say, you see the benefit of them. They do really come into the fore when it's dark. You can see the track there. It's quite dirty, weathered down. Again, I've got to put a bit more oil spills in between the sleepers, and I've actually toyed with some rubbish, you know, litter, a lot of these trains had toilets that emptied onto the track, and I've lost count the many times I've been at Waverley and seen somebody's lunch, shall we put it, that's been flushed out the bottom of the trains when they've been at the station, which they should never do, but you know, humans being the way they are, they just flush it and they don't really care about the mess they're making to the station. So there's the buffer stops. Really pleased with them. Any questions regarding these, just give us a shout. Okay, in the last month I've also been working on some electrics for the layout. I've installed consoles for, this will be 7 to 12 of the yellow lever turnouts on the rest of the lower area. I've also got 2 consoles here. These are designed for accessories like lights, and I've also got these ones here which control the signals. They can set a green signal to red, say in a station, if you want the train to stop. And I'll try and show you that. If I zoom down to this one, which is sitting at green just now on the main line, and what I'll do is I'll flick one of the levers and it sets it to red, and if I want it set to green, there I go. Now it'll continue to work on the sensors, you know, as the train passes and whatnot after that, but it just gives you the option, and I'll do that to 4 of the signals at the station, so I can set them to red to stop the train moving. I can do the, you know, bring the line to a halt if you like. This one here, this is just a simple on-off for the other signal down the east end, just where the 47's sitting, and it's just controlled simply by red and green. That's not wired up into any sensors because it's just it's a siding, and I'm not going to be using it that much. I thought, well, I'm not going to put a sensor into the track just for that one. So that's the switches, and I'll be adding to them as we go through the next couple of months. What I've also done, I've wired up the lighting for the layout. There's the interior lights for the station. These are just LEDs, and what I'll do now is I'll show you the interior. And it's lit in there. You can see somebody in the VIP waiting area sitting on a whatever calculator or something in her hand, before the era of mobile phones, so it can't be one of them. And there's bookcases and paintings and whatnot, and there's also a telly in the corner and some sofas and armchairs. If you go to the other side, a gentleman with a newspaper sitting in the room waiting for his train, and again bookshelves, paintings on the wall, and that kind of stuff. Downstairs I've not got any furniture so far. That'll be the cafe, and this is the ticket office, and on the wall you can see an information board of, you know, for timetable information. And again, I'll have more furniture there later on, as well with the foyer, some litter bins or something. So that's the lighting for the station building. And the Waverley West signal box is also finished, and it's been wired up and lit. Just a single LED here. I didn't want it, you know, illuminating the whole of the station area. It's just a single one, and I've shown you the interior before, but I've now got a control desk which I built some months ago, with all the control panels, and I'll get some staff put in there in due course, looking onto the rail. What I'll do, I'll take the roof off. The roof's easy access to remove. I don't want to fix it down. And there's the console for every single of the turnouts, and with a wee track diagram of the area they control underneath, and a computer screen or whatever panel with a wee keyboard and stuff. It's made out of a piece of solid wood. I just took a router to it, one of my workshop tools, to give it this kind of profile. I looked at what used to be at Edinburgh Waverley in their signal box, and they had little levers as opposed to buttons, but I thought, oh, no, I'm not going to go down that route. But that was the shape of their kind of control desk, and all the relays and switches were underneath the workstation. And again, every single switch is set to different. You've got green, I don't know if you can see that here, green, white lights, red, double red, double reds, you know. We've got keyboard there, and again the bit of the track where these switches are controlling the levers for the turnouts. So there we go. Put it back in there. There's 12. Let me get right there. There's 12 there and 12 there. So there's, you know, the full lower section turnouts. So I've got my 12 reds, and I'll have my 12 yellows eventually as well. And I've got the track plan on the wall, Waverley West Junction and the East Junction, along with the furniture in the two end rooms, offices and restrooms and stuff like that. So I'm really pleased with the signal. That's my first scratch built effort of a real structure, so I think it's turned out quite well. Really, I'm quite happy with it. It's been pushed in there, it's not fitted in place, it can be lifted if I need to. I've just got to fill in the wee gap there with the ballast. I have filled in the rest of the gaps with the ballast, because these are all screwed down now, and I did the same at the other side there to get all the ballast right up against the retaining wall, so there's no gaps. It looks like it's actually built in and not just plonked down. What I did with that is I didn't want to use PVA water because it got underneath into the card where it wasn't obviously spray varnish. So what I did was I put the ballast in place, but before I did that I got a wee squeezy of normal PVA, not watered down, and I just put it in, and then I put the ballast on top. That was for the larger gaps, and then I kind of devised a wee system of putting the ballast in, getting it in when I wanted it, and getting Woodland Scenic's Scenic Cement, which is kind of like PVA and water, but it doesn't tend to you know, destroy the card, and that's it there. I've got the spray for it, but obviously with that I just took the wee kind of pipette thing and carefully put it in place, and it's very neat now. A little bit bushes and stuff in it, and, you know, shrubs and debris against the walls, like, but just gives it that finish. And I've also finished ballasting up the left there, and again that's all been tied in. If I do choose to lift this, it's all been screwed down. You know, it might lift a wee bit of ballast with it, but nothing I can't patch up. But you know, I made sure that I've nothing else to do that requires the walls to be removed at the moment, so I did that. Okay, that's it for part 1 of October Update. If you want to watch more, including the running session, could you watch part 2 of the October Update, and I'll show you some of the locals running through the station in the daylight and at night, which will show off the station building lighting a bit better. I'll also go through the new Helgen Class 58 as well that I've just bought from Olivia's Trains. Any questions about this part of the update, just as always, post them below.